Rook lay in my arms, so small that my hand nearly covered his entire body. 3 months old, a Doberman pup who should have been tumoring about, tail wagging, biting at life. Instead, he trembled, breaths short and shallow, each rise and fall of his chest clinging to the thinnest thread of survival. His eyes. God, those eyes will haunt me forever. Dark brown, wet, caught between terror and despair, yet still fixed on Ethan, my son. As if he understood. As if he knew the boy was the only reason he held on for another second, another fragile beat of life. Ethan pressed his face into the pup's damp fur, his shoulder shaking. I heard his whisper, broken and pleading. "Don't leave me, Rook. Please." His voice cracked like a child gripping the edge of the abyss after losing his mother. The veterinary assistant held a syringe, its needle flashing cold under the light. The glint felt like a blade, ready to cut the thread of everything we still had. The sight pierced straight through me, choking the air from my lungs. Rook closed his eyes for a moment. His head dropped against Ethan's chest. His docked tail twitched once, a feeble shiver. A final wag? Or just the last twitch of failing muscles? I didn't know. I only knew my tears blurred the sterile white ceiling above. I pressed my ear to his frail body. His heartbeat staggered, skipping, then pounding erratically like a torn drum gasping out its last notes. His heat was feverish, wrong. The stench of antiseptic mixed with wet dog, a smell I knew would follow me to the end of my days. The smell of loss closing in. The assistant lowered the needle, inches from his skin. And then, in that cruelest of seconds, Rook's eyes shot open. His pupils shrank, burning sharply. Tiny white teeth bared. From deep in his throat came a growl, not weak, not wavering, low, solid, defiant. A sound that refused to let death have him. I froze. Ethan's head snapped up, eyes wide. The assistant faltered, syringe hanging in midair. That growl wasn't loud, but it detonated inside me. It wasn't the sound of a dying pup. It was something else. A warning. An accusation. Dr. Marissa Hayes strode forward, her voice cutting like steel. "Wait!" She knelt, sliding her fingers through the fur behind Rook's ear. The pup kept growling, his gaze locked not on her, but on the assistant. Hatred glinted in his stare, cold enough to raise the hairs along my neck. Her hand stilled. Her expression shifted, focused, then shocked, then hard as iron. "This can't be," she whispered. My voice rasped. "What is it, doctor?" She looked up, no longer just a veterinarian, but a witness to something monstrous. "There's a puncture." Tiny. Precise. Not ours. This wasn't random. My chest constricted. I looked down at Rook, frail, shaking in my son's arms. He wasn't dying from illness. Someone had wanted him gone. Ethan clutched him tighter, tears spilling onto his slick fur. But Rook didn't blink. His eyes stayed locked on that assistant, the growl vibrating through his fragile chest. A pup, weak, on the edge of breath, and still he resisted. Still he roared against a death arranged for him. In that instant, I no longer saw a puppy. I saw a warrior, a spirit far too small for the weight this world had dumped upon him, yet unbroken, fighting the only way he knew, protecting the boy who held him with the last fire of his fading life. My throat closed. Blood thundered in my ears, and I knew this wasn't the end. This was the beginning. That afternoon, the Cleveland sky was uncharacteristically clear. Sunlight poured down over Lake Erie like golden honey, shimmering across the ripples. I sat on an old wooden bench in Edgewater Park, phone in hand, pretending to scroll, but I wasn't reading a word. I was listening. Laughter. Ethan, my 10-year-old, was laughing for the first time in months. 6 months after his mother passed, the house had held nothing but silence. But now, carried on the wind, woven between the cries of gulls overhead, that laughter rose like a lamp flicking on in a long, dark room. "Go get it, Rook!" Ethan shouted, his voice alive with joy. The battered tennis ball sailed from his hand, carving a bright arc across the sky. Rook, 3 months old, a slip of a Doberman, launched himself after it like a tiny black arrow. His floppy ears bounced, his thin legs flailed, but he poured everything he had into the chase. He caught the ball mid-air and landed with a clumsy skid, sending grass flying. "Good boy, Rook!" Ethan cheered, eyes shining. The pup bounded back, his whole body shaking with the wag of his stubtail. He dropped the soggy ball at Ethan's feet, then looked up with expectant eyes, as though the universe had shrunk to nothing but the promise of another throw. I sat there, heart caught between warmth and ache. I had brought Rook home on nothing but a fragile hope that a tail wag might reach into the hollow inside my son. And against all odds, it had. Rook had opened a door where only darkness had been, where laughter had died. "Dad, watch this," Ethan called, turning for a longer throw. I nodded, setting the phone aside, eyes locked on him. I didn't want to miss this rare spark of childhood joy against the backdrop of grief. The ball flew higher this time, farther. Rook sprinted, grass tearing beneath his paws. He caught it clean, turned, his eyes blazing with pride. But this time, he didn't return. He froze. I saw his body stiffen, paws dug deep into the grass. His ears rose, his gaze fixed on the far edge of the park. I squinted. A man. Long black coat brushing his knees, a baseball cap pulled low across his face, just walking, slow, unnoticed by anyone else. If not for Rook, I might not have looked twice. But Rook saw him. A growl ripped from his throat, not the awkward bark of a pup learning his voice. This was sharp, cold, certain, the kind of sound that prickled my skin. "Rook?" Ethan's voice faltered. The pup didn't budge, his dark eyes locked on the stranger. The fur along his spine rose in a jagged line, his lip curling to reveal teeth not yet grown but already sharp. I moved closer. "What is it, buddy?" The man tilted his head. Just for a second, just a flicker of a glance toward us. But in that glance, I felt it. The jolt of someone caught in the open, refusing to linger too long. He turned away, pace quickening. Rook didn't relent. He barked, short, urgent bursts. Ethan had to grip his collar. "Shh, Rook, it's okay." His eyes darted to me, searching for answers. I shook my head. "Just a stranger, son." But even as I said it, I didn't believe myself. Because I had never seen a puppy react like that. Not with fear, not with surprise, with resistance, with protection. Even after the man vanished into the trees, Rook kept growling, eyes pinned to where he'd been. I had to call him 3 times before he turned back, but when he did, I saw his breathing was faster, harsher. We tried to keep playing, but the rhythm was broken. The ball fell near him, untouched. He stood still, blinking too quickly, his body swaying. Then he collapsed. "Rook!" Ethan screamed, sprinting to him. My own heart hammered as I ran. The small body lay sprawled in the grass, gasping, heat radiating wrong. I touched his skin. It burned. "Dad, what's happening?" Ethan's sobs broke into panic. I had no words. I scooped Rook up, his limp frame sliding like an empty sack. Ethan ran beside me, tears streaming, whispering over and over, "Don't leave me. Please don't." In my eyes, Edgewater Park, with its golden light and moments of laughter, dissolved into something foreign, hostile, and I knew the real nightmare had just begun. The glass doors of the clinic burst open under the desperate shove of my shoulder. I stumbled inside, Rook limp in my arms, his tiny body burning like a coal about to turn to ash. Ethan clung to my side, eyes red, voice breaking as he repeated the pup's name, as if sound alone could hold him here. "Dr. Hayes!" I shouted, my voice cracking. Marissa Hayes was walking a patient out. One glance was enough. No questions, no hesitation. "Room 3. Now I laid Rook on the steel table, its surface cold against his trembling body. Ethan refused to let go, his small hand pressed to the pup's back. Rook's eyes fluttered half-closed, breath ragged. His belly rose and fell unevenly, like a machine faltering before it shuts down. Hayes placed her stethoscope against his chest. Just a few beats, and her face darkened. She pressed gently along his abdomen. Rook whimpered, a sound so faint it split me open. "His internal organs are under severe stress," Hayes said, voice low but steady. "I need to run tests immediately." Ethan broke down. "But he was just running, just playing with me." His voice shattered, the rest lost in sobs. I gripped his shoulder, pretending to be steady while I felt myself plummeting inside. Hayes lifted Rook and vanished through the exam room door. It slammed shut, the lock clicking like a blade, severing hope. I collapsed onto a bench in the hallway, fists clenched against my knees, heart hammering. Ethan buried his face against my arm, his cries muffled but cutting through my chest. The clock ticked above us, each sound carving time into fragments. I heard trays clatter, hurried footsteps, and machines humming to life. My jaw locked, blood pounding against my temples. At last, the door opened. Hayes emerged with a thin file in her hand, but her expression carried the weight of stone. "Mr. Anderson? Ethan?" She paused, measuring every word. "The results show Rook's internal organs are failing. Rapidly, too rapidly for a healthy pup. No." The word scraped from my throat. "This morning, he was chasing a ball." Hayes shook her head. "I know. I saw it too. But the numbers don't lie. His system, it's shutting down." Ethan shot to his feet, his chair crashing to the floor. "No! You're wrong. He can't leave." He threw himself onto the table, wrapping Rook in his arms. The pup cracked his eyes open, exhausted, but managed to nudge his small head against Ethan's chest. And even with his tail trembling on the edge of stillness, I saw him try to wag, as if to say, "I'm still here." "What can we do?" My voice didn't sound like my own. "Medicine? Surgery? A transfusion?" Hayes met my eyes. "I'll be honest. We can try aggressive treatment, but the chances of recovery are almost none. The most merciful thing would be to let him go peacefully." The air thickened, solid. Ethan screamed, voice ripping the room apart. "No! Don't let them do it." I reached for him, but my hand shook. I looked at Rook, those tiny dark eyes locked on me. No blame, no fear. Only trust. My teeth ground together. Tears swelled, but I couldn't break, not in front of my son. "Doctor," I forced a breath. "Give us more time." Just one night, Hayes studied me, her gaze softening. She nodded. "All right. I'll prescribe pain relief and instructions. Bring him back in the morning." The drive home was swallowed in darkness. Ethan sat in the back, Rook's head resting on his lap. My boy whispered into the pup's ear again and again, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me." In the rear-view mirror, I saw Ethan's swollen eyes, saw his small hand smoothing every strand of fur. The sight carved straight into me, leaving a wound that would never heal. I knew. Tonight would be a war. The next morning, Cleveland lay under a pale gray veil of mist. I sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, eyes locked on the wall clock. Each tick of the second hand tightened the knot in my chest. Only 30 minutes left until I had to bring Rook back. I hadn't slept a minute. All night, I heard Ethan's voice drifting from his room, whispers, stories, promises, pleas. His words broke apart in the silence, each one a knife across my heart. At 8:30, I knocked on his door. He opened it, holding Rook in his arms. The pup was noticeably lighter, his body shrunken in a single night. But his eyes, they burned brighter than I expected, not dulled by weakness, focused, as if waiting for something. We arrived at the clinic. The air was cold, saturated with antiseptic. No sound of other animals, only a thick silence. Dr. Hayes stood at the door, white coat neat, her expression strangely calm. "Good morning," she said softly, motioning with her hand. "Room 3, same as yesterday." Ethan sat with Rook on his lap, burying his face in the pup's fur. I stood behind him, hands clenched tight. The assistant prepared a tray, the gleam of a needle flashing like lightning straight into my throat. "Do you want to say goodbye?" Hayes asked. Ethan broke, clutching Rook. "No, I can't." I was about to kneel beside my son when Rook suddenly sprang up. His whole body went rigid. Tiny paws clamped down on Ethan's thigh, claws digging into the fabric. A growl rolled out, low, strong, unshaken. Everything stopped. The assistant stepped back, syringe hovering in midair. Ethan gasped. "Dad, he's—" I saw the fur along Rook's spine bristling. His eyes weren't on Ethan, not on me. They were locked on the assistant. His growl deepened, fierce enough to make the room vibrate. "Wait!" Hayes's voice cut through the air. She moved forward, kneeling eye level with Rook. "Let me check." Her hand slipped gently through the fur behind his ear. Rook kept growling, gaze frozen on the assistant, but his body allowed her touch. Ethan held him tight, breath trembling. I stood frozen, heart pounding, cold sweat running down my back. Then Hayes's fingers stopped. Her face shifted, focus, shock, then steel. "There's an injection site here." Her voice was low, but every word rang clear. Tiny, precise, not mine, and not accidental. My throat closed. "What are you saying?" Hayes rose, her eyes grave. "Someone injected him. A compound designed to mimic organ failure. I need to run a blood test immediately." The room fell into dead silence. I could hear my own heartbeat thundering. Ethan clung to Rook, tears streaming down his face. 15 minutes later, Hayes returned with a printout. She laid it on the table, her finger tapping a column of numbers. "Here. A synthetic compound. It makes the organs appear to be shutting down. Just enough to fool initial tests. Just enough for us to believe he was dying." The breath left my chest. "My God." Hayes nodded, her voice heavy. "Someone wanted this pup put down." Quietly. No suspicion. No trace. I looked at Rook. He lay in Ethan's arms, exhausted, yet his eyes stayed open, fixed, unyielding. And I understood. He had known. From the beginning, his growls weren't from pain. They were warnings. He had recognized the hand that hurt him. This wasn't an illness. This was a plot. And my family had just stepped into a war I never saw coming. Dr. Hayes lowered herself into the swivel chair, the file spread open across the desk. Page after page turned beneath her hands until photographs slipped free. Dogs scarred and bruised, eyes clouded, Reports stamped with the same cold words. Case closed. The room, already chilled, seemed to lose its air entirely. "Mr. Anderson?" she began, her voice rough with restrained fury. "I've seen this before." I filed 3 reports. Every one of them vanished. My brow tightened. "What are you saying?" She laid a photo on the desk. A skeletal dog stared out, its back a road map of scars. "A man named Victor Kane. He runs illegal dog fights out of the old industrial belt south of Cleveland. I believe he's behind the injection we found in Rook." The name hit the room like a dropped anvil. I'd heard it before, in bar whispers, in rumors of shelter dogs disappearing, never to return. "Victor Kane," I repeated, a chill crawling down my spine. Ethan shot up straight. "I know him!" That was him yesterday at Edgewater Park. The man in the black coat, cap pulled low. Rook growled at him. I turned to my son, blood draining from my face. The memory slammed back. Rook's hackles raised, his eyes locked on that stranger. It hadn't been random. He had smelled it. Something is clinging to Kane's skin. Hayes nodded slowly. If it were Kane, then Rook is a witness. 3 months old, but he recognized him. That's why Kane wants him silenced. For good. The room fell into heavy silence. I saw Ethan's fists clench, his tear-brimmed eyes lit by a fire I hadn't seen since his mother's death. "What do we do, Dad?" His voice shook, but held steel. I laid a hand on his shoulder. "Son, this isn't for a child. The police will handle it." "But Rook saved me at the park," he whispered, eyes wet, unblinking. "I can't just sit here." I didn't answer. I only pulled him against me. But I knew his words had already rooted deep inside him. That night, the Anderson house was quiet. I sat in the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, calling old contacts, fishing for threads on Victor Kane. Upstairs, Ethan lay beside Rook, stroking his sleek fur. I heard his whisper drift down the hall. "We have to protect each other, right? If no one believes us, we'll find out ourselves." I climbed the stairs late. Ethan had fallen asleep beside Rook, the warm lamp glow across 2 faces. One small boy, one fragile life. I pulled a blanket over them both, then stepped out, my mind in knots. At dawn, the sound of rattling jolted me awake. My chest tightened. I rushed into his room. Empty bed. The back door is ajar. His small backpack is gone. The old bicycle is missing. My veins froze. Ethan was gone. And I knew exactly where. The name Victor Kane pointed him one way. The abandoned industrial yards. Before I could move, Rook was already at the door, his deep brown eyes fixed, ears sharp. A low whine slipped out, then a look. No words needed. He knew. He was ready to lead. And I understood. The fight had just turned a page. My tires screamed as I slammed to a stop at the end of the abandoned industrial road. Warehouses stretched in a long, broken line, rusted steel doors, shattered glass, the wind howling through them like a chorus of grief. My heart pounded against my ribs, fingers straining white on the wheel. Rook sat rigid in the passenger seat, ears upright, eyes locked ahead. A low growl rumbled in his throat as he glanced at me, then back toward the darkness outside, urging me forward. "Take me to my son," I whispered. I barely finished before the door opened and Rook leapt out, paws pounding the cracked pavement. He led me down an alley around the back of a warehouse. A steel door hung ajar, its hinges groaning like old metal in pain. Then I heard it, a voice I'd never forgotten. Slick, cruel. "Kid, you're braver than I thought, but no less stupid." Ethan's voice trembled, small but unbroken. "Let me go. My dad's coming." Tears stung my eyes at the sound. I wedged my phone between my shoulder and ear, whispering, Warehouse 12. Industrial Road. Now I slipped inside. The air was damp, reeking of rust. A single shaft of light cut through a broken window, illuminating a scene that will never leave me. Victor Kane. Tall, broad, draped in black. His hand gripped Ethan's shoulder. My son bound with rope, his face pale with fear, but his eyes steady, refusing to yield. "Let him go!" I roared. Victor turned, his stare cold. "Mr. Anderson, right on time? I knew you'd come, thanks to your dog." In that instant, a growl erupted. Rook shot from the shadows, a streak of black and tan, teeth sinking into Victor's pant leg. He yanked hard, dragging the man off balance. Ethan tumbled free, the rope slipping from Victor's grasp. "Rook!" Ethan cried, tears streaming. Victor snarled, shoving my boy aside. From his coat, he pulled a metal baton that glinted under the weak light. The kid was bait. The dog. That's what I came for. I lunged, but Victor swung first. The baton cracked down on Rook's back. The sound, metal on fragile bone, shattered something inside me. Rook yelped, blood blooming into his sleek black fur. "Don't! Don't hurt him!" Ethan screamed, his voice breaking. I didn't think. I hurled myself at Victor, both of us crashing to the concrete, dust exploding around us. His fists hammered like steel. My head reeled, but the image of Ethan cowering in the corner kept me upright. Then, Rook again. Summoning the last of his strength, he clamped his jaws onto Victor's arm, teeth sinking deep around the baton. Victor's scream tore through the warehouse as the weapon clattered across the floor. "Hold him!" I roared. Rook refused to let go. His eyes blazed, his bite unrelenting. The stench of blood mingled with rust, the sound of Victor's curses echoing through the steel rafters. And then, flashes of red and blue lit the windows. Sirens wailed, boots thundered. "Police, drop your weapon!" In the chaos, Victor was slammed down, steel cuffs locking around his wrists. He glared at me, eyes promising revenge. I didn't care anymore. I rushed to Rook. He released his grip, stumbled, and collapsed on the concrete. His chest rose and fell in desperate bursts, his shoulder drenched in crimson. "No, no, son." I gathered him into my arms. His small body burned against me, heavy as lead. Ethan threw himself beside us, clutching Rook, sobbing. "He saved me, Dad. He saved me." I pulled them both close, my ears ringing with the pounding of my own heart. I didn't know if we could keep Rook alive. But I knew one thing beyond doubt. He had fought like a warrior. Not for himself, but for us. The wail of sirens still echoed outside the warehouse as I carried Rook in my arms, his body trembling, his blood soaking into my shirt, hot as fire. Ethan stumbled beside me, his face streaked with tears. Only one thought filled my mind. Save him. Dr. Hayes was waiting in the car, her medical bag thrown open. "Back seat, now!" she barked, her calm voice edged with urgency in her eyes. We tore through the streets of Cleveland, the flashing lights of squad cars trailing behind. I cradled Rook against me, whispering into his ear, "Hold on, son. You saved Ethan. Now it's our turn to save you." At the clinic, everything blurred into a storm. Operating lamps flared. Machines beeped in erratic rhythms. Hayes and her team surged forward. Ethan and I stood behind the glass, his small hand clutching my wrist, shaking. Rook lay on the steel table. An oxygen mask covered his muzzle. Scalpels flashed. Every cut, every stitch felt like a blade through my chest. The monitor's beeps rose, fell, rose again. Ethan dropped his head against the glass, whispering, "Don't leave me, Rook. Please don't leave me." Time stretched into an eternity. Then the door swung open. Hayes stepped out, her coat flecked with blood, her eyes raw from strain, but her lips broke into the faintest smile. "He made it. That pup's a fighter." My legs nearly gave way. Ethan burst into tears, collapsing into my arms. We clung to each other as if the whole world had just been handed back. Weeks blurred together. The clinic became our second home. Every morning, Ethan sat by Rook's recovery bed, reading aloud from his books. His young voice carried across the room, and Rook's eyes opened to each word. His ears twitched. His short tail tapped the blanket. I knew he understood. Every syllable, every heartbeat of the boy beside him. Every night, before the lights dimmed, Ethan whispered, "Tomorrow will be better than today, Rook. I promise." And somehow, it was. Day by day, Rook's wounds closed. His steps were shaky, but stronger. 6 weeks later, autumn spread gold across Edgewater Park. I brought Ethan and Rook back to where it all began. My son hurled the battered tennis ball. Rook, scar etched across his shoulder, bounded after it. He wasn't as fast, but his eyes blazed. His stub tail wagged with all its might. Ethan's laughter rang out, a sound I once feared I would never hear again after my wife passed. On the way home, I stopped in front of Cleveland City Hall. I held out a large envelope. "Open it," I told Ethan. He tore it open, eyes wide. Inside lay an official document stamped in red, Certificate of Adoption. The name printed bold across it, Rook Hope Anderson. Ethan froze, lips trembling. "Dad, you gave him our name?" I nodded, eyes stinging. "And your mother's? Hope." Because he brought hope back to us. Ethan wrapped his arms around Rook, tears dripping into his fur. The pup lifted his head, deep brown eyes shifting from Ethan to me. And I knew. He understood. He had chosen to stay. Forever. That night, we hung the certificate in our living room, right beside my wife's photo. The warm light cast 3 silhouettes on the wall. A man, a boy, and a Doberman who had once been condemned to die unjustly. I looked at them, the 2 fragile pieces of my world, and realized, family isn't only blood. Family is where beings choose to stay, to love, against all odds. Rook couldn't speak. He didn't need to. In his eyes lived gratitude, a vow, and a love purer than anything I had ever known. That day, sitting once more in Edgewater Park, I watched Ethan throw the ball, watched Rook chase it through drifting leaves, and I thought, somewhere, maybe my wife was smiling, because thanks to a once-abandoned puppy, our hearts had learned how to laugh again. And I understood. The wordless bond between human and animal can heal wounds even time cannot. If Rook's story has touched your heart, take a moment to think of the thousands still trembling in silence, waiting for an open hand. They have no voice, but their eyes tell entire lifetimes of pain and of fragile hope. If you've ever known a moment when the love of a small animal changed your life, share it in the comments below. Let's spread the truth. Compassion can save more lives than we imagine. And if you believe stories like Rook's deserve to be told, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Every view, every share might be the miracle that pulls another dog from the shadows into the light. Because sometimes all it takes to change a life is a hug, a name, and a heart willing to love.